We are delighted that you're joining us for another podcast of Wake Up Align, and it is the podcast for chiropractors, where we get to talk about chiropractic lifestyle, and topics of interest. You can contact us through our email, and that is mailbag@amcfamily.com. Welcome back. We have another exciting episode of Wake Up Align to share with you today, and of course, I'm here with my good friend Tom Owen, and we have a special guest in the studio today, the one and only John McGuire. Welcome,
Thanks
John.
for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure to do so. I know you got a lot to share, but Tom, before we give John the microphone there and really introduce him to our audience, you have known him for a while. You guys have a friendship outside of this effort that we do, and I just thought it would be nice for the listeners to hear how you came to know John and how you knew he was the right fit for this family.
Well, that's a long story. I don't think we have enough.
You got 5
minutes. Yeah, we can't squeeze that much into 5 minutes. But the bottom line is I have known John for well over a decade that I've known John, but I've known his wife since I was actually in high school. She was kind of a big sister model to me growing up. And when we moved back to Jacksonville, to kind of shorten the story, when we moved back to Jacksonville, my wife and I were looking for a church home, and I decided to reach out to Tammy, his wife, and, asked for advice on, where I should start my search, because I trusted that. And it wasn't long after I made that connection, I found out the work that he and his wife do with the foster closet. They do an incredible ministry for foster kids, and you'll want to learn more about that. And one thing led to another. Next thing I know, the two wives, my wife, Dr. Chris, and Tammy, connected and arranged for this dinner. And I'll tell you a real quick funny about that dinner, and then we can move on. But at the time, I didn't know John, and all I knew was at the time he worked in genetics. All right, that's all I knew. And Chris and Tammy arranged this dinner, and I'd never met this guy. And I remember driving to this dinner, and I remember where I was sitting on this traffic light, and I was just fussing, going, what in the world am I going to talk about with some nerdy scientific genetics cat? I was like, that is not my style. And it turned out John had an immense background in entrepreneurial business operations, and his story, that's where he was working, and he can tell that part of the story. But he and I hit it off that night, and within a short amount of time, he and I started spending a lot of time together once a week, just getting together and comparing notes, because we had so much in common. But John has got an extensive background, very, very talented. And then that one thing led to another, and there's a whole other story as to how he came to be a part of the Aligned family, the AMC family. And that's a funny story too. I don't know if you want me to get into that, but it was literally over, as John will tell you, chicken wings and beer. and I don't know how to tell you this, folks, but the Holy Spirit can even hit you when you're eating chicken wings and having a beer, because something hit me so hard that day. And something in my gut just said, me and John are supposed to work together, and he's going to be a difference maker in the lives of a lot of doctors. And that's exactly what's transpired over the last 6 years that he's been a part of the AMC family. He's made a big impact. But it's funny, it started over a dinner, and then eventually chicken wings and beer. And like I said, the Holy Spirit hit me that day, and he was talking. So that's the background of our relationship, but John can expand on that if you'd like.
I love it. John, first question for you is, how much were you fussing stopped at the light on that first dinner?
Well, what's interesting is just about all my friends have come from my wife, because she's by far a better person than I am. And so it wasn't a shock to me that I knew I would be meeting good people, and that something would come from that one way or another. I do recall eating more chicken wings than I ever have before that night, because it was an all-you-can-eat for like $15. And it was just quite an extraordinary thing. But what was really interesting to me, and where the connection was made, was that chiropractic had a major impact on my young life. And I'm not sure whether I've told this story or not. I may have shared it a long time ago. But as a high school student and a promising young soccer player, I made my way to Colorado to go skiing with some friends, and I wound up breaking my femur on the slope, and it dislocated my hips, and the break was right above my growth plate. So even though I had surgery and got adjusted, or my leg readjusted and casted in Colorado, part of my treatment plan when I got back to Florida was to see a chiropractor. And that was Dr. Bob Hutchinson on Kingsley Avenue, that I will never forget. Because he wasn't just a good chiropractor, he was an athlete himself at a younger age, but really verbally talked me through the injury, how I could get past the growth plate and dislocated hip and all those issues that came with it. I mean, I was in a cast for 16 weeks, so my leg really lost a lot of mass, and it was a major impact for me going forward, so it was easy for me to find a connection with chiropractic.
I never knew that before. If you've told that story, I've completely forgotten it, but that's, as far as I know, that's the first time I've heard that one. That's very interesting. It's funny how we all find our way to this thing called chiropractic on different paths. Well, introduce yourself to our listeners. We have some listeners that are not affiliated with AMC Aligned. They have no idea who you are. So tell them a little bit about yourself, your background.
So I'll be somewhat brief with that, but I was lucky enough in 1989 to be one of 20 recruited by Jack Welch and the GE Executive Management School, where quite frankly, it was a 2-year process that was the most incredible thing I ever went through as far as business is concerned. I learned more in those 2 years from mentors and experts in their field than I could ever imagine to get. So immediately I wound up spending almost 4 years with GE, 2 years after the program, and absolutely loved it. But in one of my vacation trips to Florida is where I met my wife on a blind date. So I tried to relocate with GE to Florida, which was unsuccessful, but wound up finding myself working for a large healthcare company, which is something I always aspired to do, even when I was in school. To make a long story short, I spent several years in corporate America in biotech and healthcare. And ultimately, my last job in that, or with corporate America, was launching an entirely new division for a publicly traded company. And because of my background with GE and the ability and opportunity I had to launch this new division, it really gave me what I needed to go forward to be on my own. So roughly 2001, I left to go on my own and build a company that focused on building other companies or taking startups to market. And I have done that ever since.
Nice. How long have you and Tammy been married?
29 years next month.
Well, congratulations for that. And how many kids, and also how many foster kids have you guys been a part of?
So I have 4 children, 2 biological and 2 we adopted from the foster care system. But over the course of 13 years as foster parents, we had 63 kids in our home.
Wow. I know you don't do it to impress people, but I got to tell you, that's very impressive.
Yeah, it was probably,
it really is.
Besides Jack Welch, it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done.
Sure. Well, you do a lot of things inside of this family called AMC Aligned, and we don't have enough time adequately to go through everything that you have a hand in or you've touched and improved. But I know that right now you have a focus that you're working diligently on and constantly rehashing, improving, modifying. Why don't you take us a little bit through that, where you are right now?
Well, my goal always with AMC was to maintain its heritage and its love and focus for chiropractic, but to add potential other, I guess you can say, ancillary businesses that fit well within the system. So how can we ultimately help out doctors in return, which also will help their patients? And by doing that, it has to be an arrangement or a business that would allow them to successfully implement without causing any problems with the AMC system and how it works. So the goal has always been, since I've arrived over 6 years ago, was to find ways to enhance a program that already existed and was already successful, but bring other potential avenues in it to complement it, which could in return, of course, help patient care, drive additional revenue, and create a more optimal operation.
And to do that, you tinkered with a few things, but I know that the nutritional component and where we are right now with that nutritional component is a big part of this effort. So walk us through maybe how you got there or what you're doing with that right now.
Yeah, so nutrition was never a field that I was an expert in by any means. But I remember in our conference room, can't recall how many years ago that was, but it was Dr. Owen having a conversation with Tom and I on how Dr. Gonstead used to do testing in nutrition and how we always felt that nutrition should be a large part of the AMC process. And so, once he told us that story, I always was looking for ways to bring an element like that to the to AMC members. And as you may know, in the marketplace now, there's a lot of niche therapeutic type approaches. Those things may include knees or shoulders or certain neuropathy conditions. While those are all strong and necessary for a patient base, it's not a very consistent thing throughout your community and patients. Let me explain that a little further. If you have a knee issue or a shoulder issue, it's very anatomy specific. And what we can and can't do in chiropractic even lowers that anatomy specific. So when you have a chiropractic practice, you have to have the square footage to bring in the equipment. You have to have the capital or loan to bring in the equipment. And then you have to really, truly market in great lengths to find those individuals who can achieve some help or assistance with those therapies. So my process was always to find an avenue or a way to help every patient that's in the community and at the chiropractic. And what we've always called the second X-ray is diagnostic testing. Having an X-ray is one terrific tool. But now, to get a little deeper issue on what else may be going on and those conditions tying to chiropractic, we wanted to build a series of testing which also help, drive and bring people to nutrition. So by doing that, it allowed clinics to not have to have capital expenditure, not really create any more square footage, and be able to treat every single patient in their community, which was a viable importance for us. It was key, quite frankly, because whether there's large subluxation problems, there's always potentially other hidden things, and we can find those things through diagnostic testing. So we created about 24 test kits that allows patients to do these within the clinic without going to a lab, and ultimately provides the chiropractor with the results, the learning, the education, and the protocols to move forward with those patients. Almost like a plug-and-play functional medicine program. And it ties so beautifully to chiropractic because when I think of any other practitioner, there's maybe two that really are capable of handling the patient in this overall process. And to me, that's chiropractic and naturopathic medicine. And that's why I believe this was the best opportunity and therapy, as well as a tool for patients, revenue, and for the chiropractor to gain the presence in the community that they need.
Yeah, there's been a lot of work I know that's gone into that, and that work never stops. But as you were describing kind of the background of that process of, the capital expenditure and the, hitting the most amount of patients with something helpful and positive, I saw Tom nodding enthusiastically about that. So, Tom, why was that so important to you? What connected you with what he was saying right there?
Well, I was connecting with everything he just shared, but one in particular is he pointed out that when you go after the niche, and the niche is so fleeting, right? You and I have talked about this on other episodes that, that's a new word, niche, but niches have been around for decades. There was niches that were, popular in the 80s. They came along in the 90s, and they come and go. But the needs of nutrition don't come and go. So that was a big thing to me, that the niches they're going to be hot for a while, but then they're going to deplete. And he can actually speak from that from a standpoint of outreach, of eventually saturation in any particular market. But then the doctor's still tied with all the debt and the expenditure. So when I was nodding, I'm like, yes, they go into it. They're the ones that take the risk with all the capital expenditure, the intensity of that, the pressure that adds to it. But one last point that I want to make is that maybe it got lost in that is why the nutrition was so important from a standpoint of providing for each and every patient. Every patient that comes in, that's something everyone needs, is the fact that this is not something that you have to spend an exorbitant amount of money marketing to, just constantly having to spend $3,000, $5,000, $7,000. We've seen cases where doctors are spending $10,000 a month marketing for these niche components. What I love about the nutrition factor is, I'm just a business guy. When I put my business cap on, is these are patients that are already coming in. So this is just an enhancement of their treatment that they're needing anyway. This is not something that you're having to go out. Now, by adding this component that Vitalleo brings, you're expanding your reach into your community. In other words, you're going to start getting referrals from people because they came in because of the diagnostic testing. They came in because of the nutritional, and hey, you helped my mom with her digestive issues. Now all of a sudden you've just opened up the what we call the town square concept. But I'm going to throw it back to the two of you here in just a second. Something I'd want John to expand on is he's not giving himself quite the credit that he deserves, because remember at dinner when I was sitting at the traffic light and I said, what is it about a genetics guy that I want to talk to? Well, he needs to expand on what he was doing prior to coming on board with AMC, because it is that background in genetics that allowed him to create the access to create not only the nutritional components, he has access to things or resources that no one else has, that was able to allow him to create the quality of the products and the diagnostic testing. So he can speak to that. I think that adds a little bit more the story behind it.
So let me, before I get to that expansion, I want to touch on niche programs real quick. I'm not against them. If our chiropractors can help their patients, their community in certain niche areas, I am absolutely all for that. I'm not going to sit here and be negative where a lot of our doctors have had some success with that. Where failure starts is when they make that the priority and leave chiropractic secondary. And what I mean by that is because I've analyzed these over the course of the years. And what typically happens is a chiropractor will put all their focus, all their dollars and marketing behind these niche programs. And ultimately, over time, they've reached their capacity in their community and those anatomy-specific patients. So then what happens during that time frame, their chiropractic practice has declined, their operating costs have gone up, and they have equipment that's not working every hour for you, which everything's based on revenue per square foot, right? Which is why we teach our doctors about expanding rooms when you reach certain amount of patient visits and all these other things. So I don't like that. I don't like when people get into niche programs and they make it the number one priority, because that's where you start to see the decline. And so that's what's key to me, because I've seen the operating costs go up significantly. I've seen marketing go up significantly. When you can still offer those and diagnostic testing, but keep chiropractic the forefront. If you have a healthy operating practice like that, the sky's the limit. So I just want to be clear on that.
And sustainable. Right. It's going to last for years, where that other way of where you never give away your foundation, right? Don't ever give away your foundation income. And the foundation income is chiropractor. You know, you've heard me say that before, Dr. Shannon. Stop trying to fit in and start standing out. You're one of 38,000 people that have any inkling of an idea of what a chiropractic adjustment is out of 350 million, and yet we continue to run away from that identity. But I'd like John to speak from the standpoint of his background of how that created the components of the quality behind the nutrition as well as the diagnostic testing itself.
Yeah, so prior to aligning myself with AMC, I partnered with the University of Florida in 2011, where I met with the entire leadership team at the University of Florida. I licensed several patents from them within the genetic marketplace, mostly in agriculture and livestock, but also worked with human. Took that company from 2011 public, 2012, or operational as a commercial company, where we wound up working with a large number of companies in 14 different countries, including went to China, where we presented with maize and other agricultural products, and really built that up to a very sizable company that was recently purchased by a much larger company. But it was during that time frame where I really got to meet and expand how that type of technology can really impact nutrition, people's lives, and things of that nature. Even in my background prior to launching this company with the University of Florida, I've spent majority of it in healthcare, including biotech, specific healthcare related that involved diagnostic testing. So I had the core knowledge and the relationships to individuals who are some of the best in the world that could really assist in growing these.
You mentioned, either you or Tom mentioned, not giving up your foundation. And I just want to tell you from a chiropractor point of view, because I am a chiropractor, having an ancillary service that helps that many people, but allows me to continue to do what I feel is the most important, which is removal of subluxation and treating patients through chiropractic. That's really important to me, because I've seen it where, whether it's nutrition or something else, people get upside down in that practice and they're focusing their efforts and their time on these ancillaries, which, they're helpful. I'm not dogging anything out, but as far as bang for the buck, I want to keep chiropractic as the priority, as the foundational component of that clinic, because that's what's going to deliver the best results possible for those patients. So I just appreciate that and how you've approached that type of arrangement.
One of the things, Dr. Shannon, that we keep evolving with in nutrition and diagnostics is tools that make it even easier for the doctors to implement, as well as staff. I mean, any way, well, you know better than us, when you can drive therapies or you can drive diagnostics and nutrition by 95% of the percent with staff and able to reach so much more that way, it's way more impactful. So, we started to develop tools that help guide the staff and doctors towards where to start, what are the protocols, the educational process, as well as nutritional coaching, experts in diagnostics and reviews of the reports themselves available. So we really put an enormous amount of things in place to really create that simplicity, but have the experts to support our doctors and staff to a level that you can't get anywhere else, because these are the same individuals who teach others, such as schools and certification in nutrition and diagnostics, that costs an enormous amount of money. In fact, Dr. Chris Miletus, who's our medical director, was the dean of the oldest functional medicine school in the United States. And that program is about $12,000 to $15,000 a year just to get certified in functional medicine. And he's teaching our doctors now. He's doing that part of this program. He's helping coach those, and he's helping our coaches help them. So there's some enormously bright people who stand behind this. As I'm sitting here today and you're talking to me, it's the experts that support me and support them, which has made Vitalleo Health and the things we're working on a successful program. I don't have the knowledge Chris Miletus does. I don't have the knowledge Tom does. I don't have the knowledge that Anil and my diagnostic labs do. But I can take that and among the team develop ways to implement it and provide it to every doctor in the most simplest and best form.
Tom, I know you had something that you wanted to add. When we come back, this is obviously going to be a two-parter, but when we come back, I want to hear more about the team that you assembled, maybe further expansion of that, and then what you guys are working on right now. I know that you're working on some very exciting things. They're going to help those providers help manage their nutritional patients better and assess them even better. So, Tom, what was it you wanted to share?
Well, since you're saying that we're going to be in episode 2 anyway, I'd like, on the next episode, tune in, because I really want to expand on what does this impact? How does it impact your practice? How does it impact your workload? How does it actually hit your bottom line revenue and your overall goals and things of that nature? But, something that maybe he wasn't able to expand on, if we have a couple of minutes to add to it. It's one thing to have the processes. It's one thing to have the access and the training. It's something else to understand the quality of the product that you're standing behind, right? I think we said earlier on an earlier episode, I talked about, well, you can have all the processes and the customer service and everything with Chick-fil-A that you have, but you're still selling fast food chicken, right? The quality of the food is not there. Where we're talking about here's the execution, here's the processes, here's the training, here's all that top quality on the back. But the key is how they've built the quality factor. So, John can speak to that. But what I love, and I'll just give my quick testimony very quickly, to say I've been in and around nutrition my whole life. He mentioned Dr. Gonstead and the lab that Gonstead had in his clinic. And by the way, Gonstead worked on nutrition. So he had testing and nutrition back then. So I've been taking supplementation my whole life. All right. And I always looked at it as like, well, I got to be healthier than I would if I wasn't taking it. But since the Vitalleo came along, this is the first stuff that as I've taken it, I actually see differences in me. Now, this is also where they can do testing and you're actually seeing the results in the testing. These components are clinically dosed, and that's what I wanted them to talk on for a moment, because this is the only product that I'm aware of that not only is the quality or the ingredients top-notch, unmatched, if I could say that, but it's also the only time that I know that and you guys have spoken on it, John, from that they're clinically dosed. So if we can take just an extra 2 minutes, and then we can wrap it up and cover some more stuff in episode 2.
Once we knew we were going to go to this direction, there was no way that we were going to have an inferior product. When you have diagnostics and you're relying on our products to change the diagnostics, you have to make sure that the product is strong enough. And what I mean by that, it had to have the absolute right ingredients, but more importantly, the right dosage. Because in nutrition, when you look at CVS and Amazon and Walmart, even some professional products, they use a lot of buzzwords. You'll see, oh, we have turmeric, but it doesn't indicate it's turmeric root, which is actually where the real quality product is that makes change. And if the dosage isn't high enough, taking the products is, well, somewhat useless. So we knew when we designed this, we had to have the top, highest grade quality, the best ingredients, and more importantly, the highest clinical dosage that we could. Because if a patient is taking a test and we plan to retest them in 90 days, we better have change, or we better have product that can help make the change. And outside of just the quality of the product and the dosage itself, we wanted to create a system. And so it was important for us to build foundational products, the products that were needed every day that patients should be taking. The multivitamin, the nerve, bone, and soft tissue, the omega, the detox, even now an immune product. These are things that were designed and built not just at high quality and clinical dosage, that should be taken every single day. Now, where it becomes a much greater system is the patient's taking these products on an everyday, but takes a heart health diagnostic test, and we find that we need some assistance in certain areas or certain markers. We're plugging in our heart health design products that coincide with the foundational products. So in other words, we design a couple of heart products just for those diagnostic tests that complement and are built off of the foundational products. Again, the entire Edison system. So it was designed to have the foundation and then the additional plug-in products to treat the conditions or areas based on how they're feeling, the diagnostic testing, and of course their x-ray.
Well, we have much more to share, and sadly we're out of time for this episode, but we will have another episode where we're talking with John McGuire and Tom Owen. So please join us for that. And if you have questions for John or questions for Tom or me, questions about nutrition, or just ideas for show or subjects you'd like for us to talk about, please email us at mailbag@amcfamily.com, mailbag@amcfamily.com, and we would love to get your feedback and your questions. Until next time, be blessed.
And one more thing before we go. If you're a chiropractor who's searching for a better way to build a more sustainable, low-stress practice, then you can contact us at amcfamily.com. You can schedule a discovery session, or you can access any of our free content, webinars, podcasts, and the like.